Thank you everyone for joining us. Looks like we're going to have a good sized group tonight. My name is Lisa Gear. I'm the Dean of Admissions at Southwestern. I will be moderating the event and asking questions to our special guest tonight, Emily Rehm, and I'll be taking a look periodically at the questions in the chat, but you will get an opportunity to actually ask your questions live. So we will do the raise hand feature, or you can raise your actual hand, and I will do my best to call on you. I'm also going to introduce our two admissions ambassadors who are joining us tonight. Brittany, if you want to say hello.
Hi, everyone. I spoke at the last Student Spotlight event. I recognize most of you. It's nice to see you all again. I work for the admissions office, and I'll be in the chat answering questions. My interests are the public defender's office. That's where I've been. That's where I will be. So I will answer any current student questions in the chat along with Armand.
Armand, you want to say hello?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Armand. Just like Brittany, I work for the admissions office. I am also the incoming managing editor for Law Journal. I'm also the teaching assistant for the first year legal writing course. And I have an interest in the district attorney's office. So feel free to ask us any questions in the chat.
Wonderful. Thank you to you both. Okay, so tonight we are featuring a wonderful alum of ours. I've had the pleasure of knowing Emily for many years. Once upon a time, she used to also work in the admissions office. She is a woman of many hats. So I'd like you all to thank Emily for joining us tonight. She's a very busy person, but she's got some great information to share with you about her journey to law school. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily Rehm.
Hi, everybody. Like Lisa said, we go way back. I started at Southwestern in the evening program in 2013. And by January of 2014, the beginning of my second semester, I was a work study student in their office. So Lisa has known me my entire time at Southwestern and beyond. I was an evening student. I graduated in 2017. And during my time at Southwestern, I did Moot Court, Law Review, the Journal of International Media and Entertainment Law. I was a teaching assistant for 6 professors, I think. At least, however many professors it was something like 10 or 11 semesters of classes. I was a research assistant for 5 or 6 professors at various times. So I'm happy to take all of your questions about various extracurriculars or the work study or balancing life and between your regular life and your school life or any of that. I hope I've covered everything, Lisa. I think that's most of it.
Sure. So I know we have some students here who are definitely interested in the evening program, which, obviously is the program that you were a student in. We also have students here who are full-time and scale. So I think everybody's here just to try to learn how you balanced everything. The opportunities that you pursued, why you pursued some of them. Did you have, you mentioned that you were, a research assistant for a number of professors, and, you really had kind of peak involvement. And I remember seeing you go through that, and I just thought, wow, you're doing this with so much poise. What were some of the reasons that motivated you to seek out some of these opportunities with some of your professors?
So right away, when I started in the evening program, I was working full-time somewhere else. And I left that job 1 week before my first semester final exams, just because I really wanted to focus on school and kind of make school my job. So that is the first thing that got me into doing work study at the school in the admissions office in January of my first year. And then kind of with that mindset, knowing that I had given up my full-time job that could have paid all my expenses through law school, I really then wanted to do everything I could to really take every single advantage I could in law school and make that sort of economic sacrifice worth it. So going through my first year, it was really a focus on just the really the academics of everything, knowing that that could set up for the later stages and other opportunities. I did do unpaid internships, externships during my summers, but then my second year, I was able to go into Moot Court as a writer because of my academics through my first year. And then because of some of the, not just my academic grades, but my academic participation in class, the fact that I was engaged, I went to office hours, and I really tried to get to know my professors, then I started being invited to be a teaching assistant or a research assistant. And those were great opportunities because I still have such good relationships with some of those professors. And that came from, again, just going to office hours, caring about the classes, talking to the professors on other time. Then I got the opportunity to work with them. And that became kind of flexible opportunities as far as the time commitment goes. I could set my own office hours when I was a teaching assistant and say, okay, I have a 3-hour gap in my schedule on Tuesday or whatever. I could set up office hours and then students could come to me with questions, or I could set that time away to email with students, or if no one came, no one had questions, it was just extra time for me to study. Same with the research assistant projects. Each of those was kind of like a one-off project with a professor, so it wasn't that time consuming in the long run. It could be something like, one of them was over winter break one year. After my fall semester finals, but before spring classes started, I helped one professor with a very specific assignment. I was putting in maybe 10 hours a week doing that. There were other professors for whom I was an RA where it was just kind of an ongoing project maybe for the semester, and I could just fit that in wherever. I could do it at night, I could do it on the weekend, I could do it between classes. So that was really nice to have that flexibility on those type of assignments. As far as Moot Court and law review, again, the work that you need to do aside from the classroom component, there is a class when you're in law review, there's a class when you're in Moot Court, and the same for when you're in the trial advocacy honors program or the negotiation honors programs. There's a course, there's a classroom component that helps you build those skills. But aside from that, a lot of what you do is on your own time. You're writing your arguments for Moot Court when you can. You're doing your production assignments for law review when you can. So it sounds like a lot in the aggregate, but what helped me a lot was just kind of plugging in the work where I could find the time between everything else.
Yeah, well, you made it look easy. I'm sure it wasn't, but you made it look easy. So I want to take you back a little bit to maybe where you were time-wise at this period, the spring before you started law school. I know, we saw the quote in your invitation that you had only applied to Southwestern and you knew you wanted to go to part-time. But can you maybe share with our guests here kind of what that thought process was? Like, did you know you were going to quit your job? And it was just a matter of time? Like, why did you pursue the evening program as opposed to full-time? And then how did you know that you only applied, that you only wanted to apply to one school? That's not typical behavior, but, obviously for us, it worked out really well in the end.
Yeah, I have, I think, a very non-average path into law school as far as that goes, as far as the admissions process goes. So to take you guys way back, when I was in college in Chicago, hi, Nick from Chicago, when I was in my undergrad studies, I did take the LSAT. I did apply to a couple law schools just because I thought, like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I finish college. I had no idea. Why not go to law school? There were some legal areas that were of interest to me, specifically copyright, music publishing, some of the entertainment related things. So I applied, I went through it. I got accepted into Southwestern. I knew I wanted to move to Los Angeles. And I was like, okay, well, sure, I got accepted. Here's my deposit. Let's do this. But I was never that excited at the time. And I realized this is back in 2008. I was thinking, I'm not excited. Why am I going to do this? I'm moving to LA no matter what. Why am I going to put pressure of law school when I'm not sure that I want it, and it's a lot of money. So I withdrew that summer before anything got started. Started working kind of miscellaneous jobs for a while, worked my way up within those jobs, but it was never the sort of career path that I saw for myself. Eventually, I got essentially as high as I could get in my company at the time. There was no advancement. I felt like I got really stuck there. And coincidentally, that happened to line up with almost the expiration of my existing LSAT score. So feeling like I had kind of hit a ceiling with where I was and wanting to, at this time, really take advantage of some other opportunity for myself, I applied again. I knew I had gotten into Southwestern before. I was hoping I could still get in again, assuming maybe it's a similar pool of applicants, who knows. I knew I wanted the evening program because I thought I was going to stay at my job all the way through law school. I thought I was going to stay at that job that, again, could pay all my expenses, my life expenses. I would only need some loans for tuition. It wouldn't be as cost prohibitive. Plus, one of my coworkers at the time was already enrolled in the evening program. So I was hearing from her, I think she was a 2L, 2 or 3L at the time I was applying. So I talked to her a little bit because she was still working for our company. So I was like, okay, it's very doable. I could absolutely work full-time during the day, go to school at night. This is an exact coworker in my company making the same commute I would be making from work to school in the afternoon. It just really seemed to make sense for me. So yes, that's kind of taking a risk when you apply to only one school. But for me, if things kind of felt right, it felt like it would be the right choice for me at the time. I knew I had gotten in once before, so unless I had done something to maybe damage my application along the way, or if it was a very competitive pool of applicants, yes, you don't know those variables. So that is how I ended up there. And I also applied pretty close to the deadline, if I remember right. So I was, don't do what I did. Obviously, we're later into the application period already, so you can't quite screw it up the way that I possibly could have. I hope you all are, on an administrative level doing a little better than I was, but it ended up working for me. I'm really happy with how it all came out. And I did have a bit of luck on my side when I did narrow my options so much.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm seeing a couple of the questions in the chat from Kimberly. She asked, what did you find to be the most challenging in law school and how did you overcome it?
The time and feeling very tired. I think that it sounds very general, but that's really, it's a lot of that. It's a lot of the time management. And for me, again, being an evening student, some of my classes would go until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And then I would need to drive home. Without traffic, I live about 20 minutes from campus. With traffic, it could be an hour. Luckily, when class gets out at 10 p.m., there's no traffic. But I'd have to get home, and then I would need to maybe start reading for tomorrow's classes, depending on what tomorrow's schedule looks like for me. And I was tired. And then again, you're plugging in my research assistant responsibilities or TA responsibilities, or maybe my moot court brief is due. So I was tired, and the hard part really was trying to balance everything and to also try to be good at it while balancing it, to try to actually put out quality work, whether that's quality reading and comprehension of the reading, or it's quality actual output, whether it's the moot court brief or it's the research projects or anything like that. That is going to be very personal to each of you, how you're going to handle that and how good you think you are at that, and whatever tools are available to you. But it's still doable, fun or not, when you're in the middle of some of that time management. You can absolutely do it. It's just a struggle to try to maybe get that system in place for you.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, so Stephanie is asking, what was the most rewarding thing you learned at Southwestern?
I love doing my job now. I love the law, and that sounds really general, but I think it was really rewarding to put myself in a situation where I knew I could have a meaningful career and actually do something that could matter afterwards. And that's not to diminish other jobs or other career paths, but just knowing that I'm in a position where I can do something that I think it could be a valuable contribution, whether it is to future clients or it is right now I'm working for LA Superior Court, to know that I'm contributing actually to our government system and to our court system. So I guess that's a broad answer, but it really is kind of the outcome, the fact that I was able to learn so much interesting stuff. I made great connections with my classmates and my professors, and now I'm doing something that I think is really rewarding to me.
Right.
And Lisa, if I can address, I'm seeing a few questions specifically about evening.
Sure.
Going, number one, I'm seeing non-traditional evening student and campus resources, extracurriculars, and also I saw something about going back to school after a hiatus. So I want to kind of combine that. So I think me taking the time off, I'd had 5 years between undergrad and law school. I personally felt like I could appreciate it more. That's not to say that someone who goes straight through is not going to appreciate it. But again, my personal circumstances of feeling like I was kind of trapped in the prior job and seeing this opportunity available for me, that's why I did everything I could do in law school to take advantage of it. I think having that time off really helped me and a lot of my classmates. I had, especially in the evening program, I had a lot of classmates who were doing career changes. And one of my closest friends and study friends was in his 50s doing an absolute career change. And we all knew just how valuable this opportunity was for us to be able to really turn things around or do something different. And it wasn't just, here's some more school, but it was, here's a great different opportunity. And being an evening student, I think Southwestern does the best they can to keep us included. And that means that those classes for the honors programs that I mentioned, they're held at the best window that Southwestern can do, usually at 3:45 to 5:45, which is a little early for some students who might be working full time. But if you can work it out with your employer at that point, it'll be your second or third year of law school. If you can work it out with the employer, that maybe you can leave a little early 1 day a week for that, for only one semester. So many of my classmates were able to make that work. And for other resources, most of the offices were open, at least in the time leading up to the evening classes. Evening classes begin at 6. So if you needed to do any sort of administrative work on campus, you could handle that. If not, I've never had a problem with Southwestern staff, faculty, professors, anyone, as far as communication through email. That's never been a problem either. People are willing to work with you, and especially now. I didn't go to school during this COVID remote time, but I'd imagine everyone's a bit more flexible as far as email and Zoom and how that all works. And there were plenty of evening students who were in the extracurriculars as well. I mean, I have to think there were at least 3 or 4 of us in Moot Court when I was in Moot Court, and then in law review, there were probably 8 to 10 of us evening students in that. So that was not a problem at all fitting in those extracurriculars.
Great. So I see a really interesting question here that I also want to pose for you. So Zell is asking, when did you know you had studied enough while balancing other responsibilities? Did that ever lead to time management issues? So maybe you could also, in case people are not familiar, also walk people through the grading system, when you get your grades, how you get those indicators of your success. And then going back to Zell's question, how did you know when you felt comfortable enough with the material to maybe move on to some other course or other project?
So that's really scary in law school, where you don't typically know how you're doing with a tangible answer until the end of the semester. By that, I mean most courses, most but not all, are 100% based on your final exam. Some classes also have a midterm that might be 20 to 25% or so. Some classes, like your legal writing class, might include assignments along the way as maybe part of your grade. So that's really scary because you don't have that sort of tangible assessment of how you're doing on quizzes or exams along the way. That is why I thought it was so helpful, in part, to go to my professors during office hours, to be able to go in. Maybe I did have a question from the class or from the reading or something like that, to go in and actually just talk to the professor about it and just hear it in a little bit more of a conversational tone rather than just the case law, just reading the black letter law in the book, anything like that. Another way was I had a fantastic study partner. We teamed up my first semester and we were together all the way through graduation. And it was probably the middle of the semester or so, maybe a few weeks before the middle, is where we would start planning weekly study sessions together. So we would get together on Saturday, maybe take a study room in the library, maybe go to an empty classroom, and we would just go through everything that up until that point in the semester, or anything that happened since our last session, and go through and just talk it out together. Again, the conversational aspect of it. Can you actually talk about what the law means rather than just recite a couple elements? And that was how it kind of got cemented in our brains of, yes, we actually understand this. We didn't just memorize a list of things. And then to go back up even more to maybe the day by day, for me, it was just read the cases that are assigned, do the reading, make sure I have some concept of what's happening, and then maybe I just have to move on to the next assignment, the next class, the next obligation. Just understand enough that when it's presented in class, in that next class session, that I can at least follow along. And if I don't totally understand it at that point, hopefully that's what the class is for. Hopefully I get my questions answered in class. The professor can explain it more clearly. And again, if that doesn't work, that takes me to my next step of maybe I need to go see the professor in office hours that week.
Great. I think there were some questions in here, and one I had for you as well about, is there some bit of advice you would give to prospective students who are on the cusp of starting law school in a few months? Anything maybe you wish you had done and didn't, or anything that you did that you definitely would recommend? Any kinds of advice for them as they are just a few months out, in some cases, from starting law school?
Enjoy the time now. I didn't do any sort of reading or prep work or anything before. I know Southwestern does, or at least did, I don't know the COVID situation, but the school has offered some sort of like intro to law school course.
Right, we have the two. Yeah, we have intro to legal writing and Bison boot camp.
Okay, yeah, so I am aware of intro to legal writing. That was offered when I was going to be an incoming student. That is the regret I have that I did not do leading into law school. So I do recommend that, even though I didn't do it myself, because I noticed that a lot of people who did take that class ended up doing really well in legal writing, or they were more likely to make moot court, which has a heavy writing component. And I didn't do it because I thought that I know how to write, I know proper grammar, it's not a problem. But what I didn't know was the legal analysis or how to go about writing the substance. I might have had clean grammar, but I didn't have a good argument. So that is one thing I wish I had done. But otherwise, I think you need to just take a little time, enjoy the summer, enjoy the time leading up to it. Brittany is nodding in agreement, and as a 3L, you can take that endorsement from her too. So great.
The dates, Bison boot camp, there's a few different sessions, Hugo, that we offer both of those programs. Okay, so let's see. My next question for you, Emily. Describe a day in the life. I know you mentioned that you work for the court system, but for those that are maybe not familiar, what does that look like? What kinds of responsibilities do you have in your role? And if you could just kind of give us some broad strokes of what that looks like for you.
Sure. So I am a law clerk for a judge at LA Superior Court. Basically, what that means is I am a judge's ghostwriter and research assistant. So we are completely remote. We have been remote for the past year. It's a little bit different, me describing this now, than what it might look like in the before times, or if we ever can get to the after times and go back in person. For me, I'm working at home. You can see in my background. I log on, I look at our calendar, I see what hearings are coming up, and my job is to do a tentative order for my judge on all the motions that are coming up, and I have to get them to her at least 3 court days before the hearing. So I need to look at all the papers, I look at the motions, I look at the oppositions to the motions, I deal with the evidence, whatever that particular motion requires. I draft a tentative ruling for my judge. She will review it, she'll make her edits. That gets posted to the Superior Court website the day before the hearing. The parties can then see how the judge is inclined to rule on it. And then when we get to the hearing date, it can be a bit more efficient for the parties and the judge, because they know how the judge is inclined to rule. So they can address what they see as any weaknesses, or they think the judge, meaning me in the background, made an error, they can address that at the hearing. It's a lot of reading, it's a lot of writing, it's a lot of research. And this job in particular, I think, really reflects what I was doing in law school a lot of, because I work for the judge. We're in the neutral position. It's not advocacy, it's more of weighing the sides and trying to find that place in the middle where the law is right.
I remember when you got this job and you were just over the moon. You were so excited, and so I'd like maybe for you to, walk us back sort of where you were in law school. Is this what you came to law school thinking you wanted to do? Where did the trajectory shift? Was it a certain experience that you had in law school that kind of sparked this idea? And how did you know that this was something that you really wanted to pursue? I can only imagine that your extracurriculars really contributed to your candidacy in this position. But I think this is a unique position. This is not necessarily something that most people come into law school even knowing exists, out there. So walk us through a little bit about how you came to find a position like this to be of such appeal.
Yeah, so I had mentioned before, I had some interest in copyright, intellectual property, music publishing that made me first interested perhaps in going to law school when I was in undergrad. All those years later, when I actually finally did attend, I still thought that's where I was going to end up going. I knew Southwestern had a good reputation for entertainment law. I thought, I don't want to be a litigator. I don't want to do a trial. I want to be on the back end. Let me do the transactional stuff, the contracts, the licensing agreements, all of that. That is not where I am now. But I did go in thinking I would go kind of an entertainment transactional route. First year as an evening student, you have zero choice over your classes. As a traditional student, I believe you get one elective in the spring. So I actually had no choice whatsoever my first year, just took the normal classes. That summer, I externed for the district attorney's office because I had a friend who was an assistant DA. So he just said, when you're available, come work for me for the summer. So that's just how that happened. Then my second year, I started taking my elective courses, and one of them was intellectual property. But also second year is when you take constitutional law, and you start taking some more of what I thought were just really interesting legal courses that I didn't expect to like as much. Torts, my first year, I had no idea what that would be about. I was thinking, I'll take it, I have to take it, I don't get a choice. I loved torts. I TA'd torts for like 5 different semesters later on, and I loved it, and I didn't expect to love it. And then that started happening with some of my other classes, like constitutional law. And then the summer after my 2L year, I got an externship with a federal district judge. One of my professors recommended me for that. And it was that externship with a federal district judge that made me even realize that law clerks were a job. And it's an actual job. You hear law clerk, but that doesn't mean extern or volunteer. It's a job. And I got to see what that was like. And my supervising law clerks were so helpful, and the job was so interesting. And I was actually doing drafts that I gave to the law clerk, and then the law clerk gave it to the judge. And it just was so cool to be on the inside and behind the scenes of how that worked. So that is when I decided I wanted to be a law clerk at some point. And these are usually short-term positions. So my 3L year, I started applying for that. My summer after my 3L year, I externed for the California Court of Appeal. Again, going back to a court, it was a different type of court. This time, instead of my 2L summer was a federal district judge, my 3L, post 3L summer was a state appellate position. So I wanted to diversify that. Again, I was drafting things that went to an appellate justice and seeing different areas of law, different stages of law, kept doing my law clerk applications. And then it was spring of my 4L year when I got my first job offer for a federal magistrate judge. And that is when I came like running into all the offices, to Lisa's office, to some of my professors saying, I got the offer. And that is actually very late in the hiring timeline. So again, I got very lucky with the way some things worked out. So my first job after law school was a 2-year clerkship with a federal magistrate judge. After that, I went to UCLA and got my LLM. And during that time is when I applied for my current job being a law clerk at LA Superior Court. So this is not where I thought I would be when I went into law school, but all my plans kind of changed while in law school. And while I really liked learning it, I liked studying. And it was really that first opportunity with the federal district judge externship that kind of turned everything around and made me realize it's almost like doing law school for my job now, if that makes sense, with all the research writing from a neutral standpoint. And I still don't have to do anything as far as arguing a jury trial.
That's so interesting. Okay, we have about 10 minutes left on tonight's spotlight. Does anybody want to ask a live question? I know there's some more questions in the chat, but does anybody want to? David, go ahead.
Oh, hey everyone, just want to say thank you all for being here. It's really, really insightful, this whole event. But Emily, my question for you is, I'm hoping to start at Southwestern this fall, and I'm just wondering if maybe you can give me some tips as to how to maintain your composure during your first year in law school.
Hopefully you've got some sort of support system when you're getting started. That was a little bit rough the first few weeks of trying to figure out everything. Because I live out in LA by myself. I would be on the phone with my family. I had some good friends supporting me. It was just hard to do that first transition. But then ideally, hopefully you can start making connections with your classmates who really understand what you're going through and they're in it with you. And for me, that helped a lot, maybe midway or so through my first semester, when we all started to become more acquainted with each other. We started having some friendships developing over this shared experience that we were having. That helped a lot because these people know what you're doing. And try to keep something that is just for you and your interests. Like I would go to Disneyland at least once a month. And that was kind of like my runaway escape. Like I'm taking one weekend day off and I'm going to Disneyland for the day and I don't have to think about law school. Or if your thing is, whether it's exercise or if you want to go for a nice hike somewhere, or if there's like some like friendly ritual that you always have, like maybe go to brunch with everybody one Sunday a month or whatever, but like have something that is your fun escape at least one day a month where you just run away from law school and do something just for you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I can attest to the Disneyland part. I've actually run into Emily there. Okay, Hugo, you're next.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for doing this. And it seemed like you worked in like different areas and worked different positions in different kinds of law, which is really cool. What was the most enjoyable part about like your favorite position that you worked in?
I like my post-grad jobs, and I'm really fortunate that I ended up where I wanted to be. And that also trails back though to my externships with LA District Attorney, though I never really wanted to do criminal law. It was just interesting to see the process, and again, to be like on the inside behind how trial and evidence works. Then the federal district judge and the California Court of Appeal justice. Again, just the inner workings I thought were so interesting, and I thought those set me up well to now actually be doing the job afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. It'd be Christina and then Eric.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for the event. If you could give yourself one piece of advice to your old self for succeeding through law school, what would that be?
Do the intro to legal writing class in the summer. My lowest grade ever in law school was first semester legal writing, because I went in thinking, like I said, like I can write, I can do grammar. I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't take that class seriously enough. I didn't give it the same attention I gave my other courses. And then later on, let's say once you're in law school, I wish I had taken even a little bit more time to take care of myself, more than the one day a month. Because everything worked out fine. I still got good grades. I still did everything. Would it have really hurt me to take an extra day in the month just to really take care of myself and sleep a little more, or actually see my friends, or maybe actually maintain a little bit more of my physical fitness that I had when I started law school that I lost completely throughout? So I do wish I had taken a little bit more time for, I don't want to just say mental health, but mental and physical health, and just really checking in with myself along the way.
That's good advice. And Emily, didn't you end up becoming a writing fellow?
Oh yeah, I did that too. Yes. I was
So
also
even
writing.
though you might have started off on a little bit of what, you know, for others would still be successful. It was a little rocky for you, but I know you doubled down and were still able to turn that into a success.
Yes, I was a writing fellow in the Writing Center for 3 years.
Yes, you really
I
did
got over that first
do
semester.
so much.
Yeah, I got over that first semester and figured it out later.
Eric, your question, please.
Hi. My question just has two parts to it, but they're kind of part of like the admissions packet. So the first part is, what are some good topics, or what are some things that are useful to talk about in the personal statement versus, for example, on the addendum, and any type of academic problems that might have occurred during undergrad? I don't know if that makes sense or if that's clear.
Yes, I can take most of that. So what I would generally say is think about the personal statement as your written interview. You will most likely not go through an interview during the admissions process unless you fall into just a couple really small groups. So really think of the personal statement as your written interview. What are the types of things you would want to convey about yourself, your readiness for law school, your motivations for law school, et cetera. You're going to have to do a lot of self-editing. Oftentimes people have many things that they want to cover in a personal statement, and you really have to have a good, strong hand with editing out your content to, fit the 2 to 3 page, limit for the document. But really just approach it from that lens. If there's anything though that you need or feel like you should explain, which may be, grades or LSAT scores or gaps in school, whatever it could be, that really belongs in an addendum. And that's really sort of like the context, whereas the personal statement, again, is, sort of a replacement, if you will, for an interview.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, we're going to go to Halana and then Vanessa.
Hi. Thank you for having this. So I'm looking to enter into, hopefully, into the 2-year program summer of 2022. My question is, what would you say is one of the most stressful aspects of being in law school? Because I really want to focus on that now so that I don't really stress out, because it's stressful enough just being in law school. I really want to know, in your opinion, what is the most stressful part of law school? Well, for you, and just briefly, can you tell me like how to actually, you said you took the 1 day every month to go to Disneyland. What could you do to just self-help to help it? Because law school, I'm sure, is going to be very stressful.
Yes, I know plenty of students who have done the 2-year scale program as well. So I've talked to them, though that wasn't my experience. I've talked to a lot of them, and I can convey some of the thoughts that I understand from them. A lot of it is the time management, and that is, again, it's not just the course assignments, the readings, the extracurriculars, but it's also the time management with your life. So trying to find a balance, whether you have a spouse or a partner or children or family who you have regular commitments and social time with. I think that is the hardest part. And if you're looking now, you're a year out from when you want to start, that's plenty of time to just think about it kind of in the background. You don't have to make a plan right now a year early for you particularly, but just, I think, assessing what your real commitments and your real necessary portions of your personal life, if that makes sense, whether it is, if you have weekly dinner with your extended family, I'm not going to tell you to cut that out at all. That's very important for your life management. But if on top of weekly dinner with your family, you're also doing regular outings, social outings with your friends, maybe you cut down some of those. The hard thing is the small side of time management, the class stuff, and then the bigger life management.
And I think
Thank
there's
you.
also sort of the acknowledgement that there's kind of an ebb and flow, right? So, you will have more time in any given week or month, depending upon where you are in the semester, or if you're in the scale program in the period. So, you might do these weekly dinners, earlier on in your term. And then maybe when you get closer to your exams or whatnot, you take a little bit of a hiatus. And one of the things that you can do, sort of this far out, even before law school, is to start to prepare your family and your friends for what that, will eventually look like. Just so that they're all, they're going to go on this journey with you in some capacity. And the sooner they realize, how precious your time will be and that you still will make time for them, the better everybody will kind of receive this change in your life. Okay, we have time for one more question. Andy. Oh, I'm sorry, Vanessa. We'll go Vanessa and then Andy.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Apologize. Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for doing this and hosting. I know you mentioned that you spent a lot of time in your professor's office hours. Do you think that was easier to do because you quit your full-time job and were now able to attend whatever sessions they may have had during the day? Or were you able to do that even before you quit your full-time job? So I guess my question is were your professors, did they vary in the times that they made themselves available? Did they make themselves available in between classes in the evening, on the weekends? I know that's a lot to ask because nobody wants to work a 7-day work week.
Yeah, and that's going to depend professor to professor. But in my experience, my first semester when I was working full-time, some of my professors had office hours from 5 to 5:45, and we had class at 6, for example. If you couldn't make it work, a lot of professors are willing to set up an individual appointment if you can't make the standing times. I've heard that that's even more flexible lately now that we're doing Zoom school. I'm actually the adjunct professor for law review now, and I was taking student appointments on weekends or evenings or whenever my law review students wanted to talk to me. We were just setting up random times. And yeah, it's going to depend on your professors, but again, in my experience, at the very least, they'll take your questions via email. A lot of them are very flexible and might set up a one-on-one appointment if for some reason you really need to talk to them, but you can't get in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was my worry, is like, I would already be up against traffic trying to get to class on time, but to have to leave even earlier would, I think, put more stress on myself.
Yeah, and
But
some professors are also available after class. They might wait around for an extra hour after class or something. So it just depends on the professors. But in my experience, a lot of them are very accommodating. So you can work that out with them.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Andy, you're gonna be our last question for the night.
Great, thanks so much, Dean Gear, and thanks so much, Emily, for helping us out tonight. My question is, we talked a lot about how law school obviously can be stressful, it can be a little scary sometimes. And what do you think Southwestern does, like particularly well to kind of alleviate that? Like what kind of resources were particularly memorable for you that, kind of really, if nothing else, provide some moral support to get you through those dark spots?
The first thing that really helped me was having really cool professors. Of course, your professors might vary from mine exactly, but the fact that I was there for 8 semesters plus some summer classes that I took, I would say I made great connections with, or otherwise just really felt like I had at least a good rapport during the course semester with almost all of them. And that was the first step in, I think, in opening the door for me, because they were the first people you really get to know. You're in class with these professors once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times a week. And I felt really lucky that I ended up with so many professors who were really funny or really passionate about the law. So you could see their enthusiasm in class, and that made you want to go to office hours or want to ask them a question during the class break or during everyone leaving class. That helped. And then the extracurriculars helped a lot too. The fact that I was building good relationships with my teammates in Moot Court, and then also, for example, Professor D'Italia, who coached and was leading the Moot Court program, or my work study in admissions. I knew I could always run in there and see everyone in that office. I think I mentioned before, I did my LLM at UCLA recently, and I was only there for 1 year, and half of the last semester we did go on Zoom. I was there from fall of 2019 to the spring of 2020, and I didn't really get to know many people there. And it's a different experience for sure, because it was an LLM program. I knew I was only going to be there for 1 year. It's a different setup. But I felt like it was warmer at Southwestern. And I don't want to put down UCLA either. Again, it's a very different experience. But it also just made me really grateful for the way my JD program unfolded for me at Southwestern. And I still made friends in my LLM program. I had great professors there too. But it wasn't, there was just like a different feeling for me. And I don't know if I came in with bias or what, but I'm really glad I had my Southwestern experience with the professors I had, with the staff that I had, and with a lot of the classmates who I'm still friends with now.
Awesome.
Thank you, Emily. That really ends us, I think, on a really nice note. I know we would have you all over again if we could. We so enjoyed having you as a student, and I'm, so proud to get to see you continue on this journey in your career. So thank you everyone for your time tonight. Let's thank Emily for her time tonight. She's got a lot of ghostwriting to do, as we heard. So this is really precious time. I love that description, ghostwriting for a judge. That sounds so fun. But thank you, everyone.
When I got through to my parents to explain what I'm doing, my parents who have never been anywhere legal adjacent, and I got through to them by explaining it that way, I figured that's the way to go.
I think that really does kind of boil it down. And I hope everyone here got some great, tips from Emily on how to really, stretch yourself in law school, how to get involved, and really why those relationships with your professor really do pay off. I know it can be intimidating. I know many people didn't take advantage of office hours in undergrad, and you felt like maybe you did just fine, but law school will be a whole new environment and a whole new way to redefine yourselves as students. And I hope you take advantage of every moment the way that Emily did. So thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening and hope to see you at our next program.